Welcome to topic 5. Having understood the concepts of livelihood and livelihood analysis, as well as challenges in the previous topic, this topic will discuss some of the livelihood analysis frameworks that have been developed, adopted, and adapted by various organizations and are being used to stimulate development in various aspects of people's lives. So, this topic starts by describing sustainable rural livelihoods. Then we'll discuss some of the frameworks which are care, livelihood approach, DFID, sustainable livelihood approach, Oxfam GB, and UNDP's sustainable livelihood approach. So, by the end of this topic, you should be able to demonstrate an understanding of the sustainable livelihoods, describe the different livelihood frameworks as promoted by selected organizations, explain the differences among the livelihood frameworks, and discuss the critiques of the sustainable livelihoods. Yeah, in the 1970s, there was famine in Africa as well as in Asia. Hence, efforts were put in place to increase food supplies globally. Then, in 1980s, despite achieving national level surpluses, households still did not have enough income and resources to meet their food needs. So, this led to a shift from national food security to food security and nutrition status of households and individuals. Farming system research therefore led to the view of production and consumption decisions of households. So in 1980s and 1990s, research focus was widened from food security to livelihood perspective. And there was a shift from material perspective that focused on food production to a social perspective that focused on enhancement of people's capabilities to secure their own livelihoods, and also a focus on participatory approaches. Sustainable livelihood analysis has since 1990s become the dominant approach to the implementation of development interventions by a number of major international agencies. It is defined in terms of the ability of a social unit to enhance its assets and capabilities in the face of shocks and stresses over time. Sustainable livelihood analysis seeks to identify the important assets in livelihood, their trends over time and space, as well as the nature and impacts of shocks and stresses upon the assets. After the cognizance of the wider context, for example, political, legal, economic, institutions, and infrastructure, interventions are designed to address any vulnerabilities or enhance livelihoods, perhaps by diversification of income streams. Sustainable livelihood analysis could be said to be a practical framework for evidence-based intervention and has much logic resting behind it, especially in a world undergoing rapid change and where resources to support development interventions are inevitably limited. So there are important definitions in livelihood analysis frameworks. The first one is the household. A household consists of one or more people who live in the same dwelling and also share meals, or living accommodation and may consist of a single family or some other grouping of people. Another important definition is that of a livelihood. A livelihood comprises the capabilities, assets, and activities required for a means of living. Another one is sustainable livelihood. So a livelihood is sustainable when it can cope with and recover from the stresses and shocks and maintain or enhance its capabilities and assets both now and in the future without undermining the natural resources base. Lastly, we have sustainable livelihood security, which is defined as adequate and sustainable access to income and resources to meet basic needs. There are there are different level frameworks that have been developed by different organizations. The first one is CARE Livelihood Framework. CARE is an international non-governmental organization. Its organization mandate is to focus its programs on helping the poorest and most vulnerable people. So CARE uses the Chambers and Conway definition of livelihoods, from where it identifies three fundamental attributes of livelihoods, such as the possession of human capabilities such as education, skills, health, and psychological orientation, access to tangible and intangible assets, as well as the existence of economic activities. CARE's emphasis is on household livelihood security linked to basic needs and rights-based approach. CARE has used its approach in both rural and urban contexts. It identifies three activities such as livelihood promotion. This involves improving the resilience of households, and these include programs that focus on savings and credits, crop diversification and marketing, reproductive health, institutional development, personal empowerment, and community involvement in service delivery activities. Another activity is livelihood protection, which involves helping prevent a decline in household livelihood security. This may include programs that focus on early warning signs, cash or food for work, seeds and tools, health education and fraud prevent health education and fraud prevention. Another activity is livelihood provisioning. This includes directly providing food, water, shelter, and other essentials, most often in emergency situations. CARE also focuses on three cross-cutting areas, which are personal empowerment, social empowerment, and service delivery. On social empowerment, here we are talking of interventions that focus on expanding human capacity and hence the overall resource and income base of the poor. On social empowerment, we are talking of interventions such as education, community mobilization, and political advocacy. And on service delivery, we are talking of expanding access to basic services for the poor. CARE places less emphasis in its framework and approach on structures and processes and macro-micro links, but emphasized on local matters, for example, community mobilization. CARE also works with local authorities and relevant national government agencies to legitimize and gain support for democratic local structures. also involved in advocacy, helping higher level authorities to develop appropriate strategies for working with community groups. Yeah, this is very important in urban livelihood projects since urban areas tend to be highly politicized and projects must work closely with government. In terms of operationalizing, KEA uses various graphics to assist with its application of the livelihood approach. In your notes, there is a figure showing KEA's livelihood model. It has the natural resources and infrastructures which are subjected to shocks and stresses on the left end, and the livelihood strategy consists of assets in the middle with the household at the center, and the livelihood outcomes like food, nutrition, and water on the other end. Another very commonly used livelihood framework is DFID. DFID aim is the elimination of poverty in poor countries with commitment to policies and actions which promote sustainable livelihoods. DFID emphasizes on 6 principles such as people-centered, responsive and participatory, smart level principle talking of conducted in partnership, sustainable as well as dynamic. In terms of its activities, it emphasizes on direct support to assets and support to more effective functioning of the structures and processes that influence not only access to assets but also which level strategies are open to the poor people. There is also a diagram which is showing DFID's sustainable livelihood framework. On one end, which is the left-hand side, there is a vulnerability context which acts on livelihood assets such as human, social, natural, physical, and financial assets. And then these assets influences the structures and processes. Examples of structures here, we are talking of the levels of government support as well as private sector support. In terms of the processes, we are talking of the laws, policies, culture, as well as institutions. The household then performs different livelihood strategies in order to achieve livelihood outcomes such as increased well-being, reduced vulnerability, improved food security, and as well as more income. Then there is Oxfam Great Britain Livelihood Framework. Oxfam Great Britain Livelihood Framework accommodates issues of environment change together with concerns about globalizing markets. Yeah, globalizing markets, deteriorating economic rights, gender and wider social inequality, and the need to strengthen deprived people's participation in the development process. They use it in planning and assessment of projects and programs and incorporates it as part of its overall strategic aim. Oxfam Great Britain also adopts Chambers and Conway's definitions of livelihood and stresses that sustainability needs to be looked at from several perspectives, such as the economic perspective, social perspective like the networks, as well as gender equity. We are talking of the institutional perspective as well as ecological. Oxfam desired outcomes are that people living in poverty will achieve food and income security, and people living in poverty will also have access to secure paid employment, labor rights, and improving working conditions. The main activities done are to help deprived people gain better access and control over productive resources, strengthen their position in markets, ensure improvements are structural rather than temporal, formulate inclusive and participatory projects, and assess their impact on livelihood, the environment, and social relations. The diagram shows Oxfam GB livelihood framework, which is similar to DFID's livelihood framework. Then there is the UNDP livelihood framework. So UNDP sustainable livelihood agenda is part of the organization's overall sustainable human development. This includes poverty eradication, employment, and sustainable livelihoods, gender protection, and the generation of environment as well as governance. Livelihood denotes means, activities, entitlements, and assets by which people make a living. These assets include the social, natural, political, human, fiscal, and economic assets. So the sustainability of livelihoods becomes a function of how men and women utilize assets portfolios on both a short and on both a short and long-term basis. Sustainable livelihoods are those that are able to cope with and recover from shocks and stresses through adaptive and coping strategies, are economically effective, they're ecologically sound, and are socially equitable, which suggests the promotion of livelihoods opportunities for one group should not foreclose options for other groups either now or in future. The sustainable livelihood brings together the issues of poverty, governance, and environment. It employs the asset-based approach and stresses the need to understand adaptive and coping strategies in order to analyze use of different types of assets. It also focuses on technology as a means to help people out of poverty. The other emphasis is that micro links should be taken into consideration and actively supported. That sustainability is constantly assessed and supported and focused to be on strengths as opposed to needs. In terms of the activities, UNDP focuses on adaptive strategies, works at the national level with specific programs and activities at district and village level, and analysis is at both household and community level. They have different stages of operationalization, such as participatory assessment of risks, assets, indigenous technical knowledge base, coping and adaptive strategies of communities and individuals. The analysis of macro, micro, and sectoral policies that influence people's life strategies, assessment of how modern science and technology can help people improve their livelihoods, assessment of social and economic investment mechanisms that help or hinder people's livelihoods, as well as making sure that the first four stages mentioned are integrated in real time. UNDP's livelihood framework has three main areas. At the bottom, we have the drivers that drives the whole process, like the policies as well as technology and investment. At the middle, there is the entry point where the household is found. But here we are looking at the local adaptive strategies, assets, knowledge, as well as technology to achieve the sustainable livelihood outcome. Thank you for your attention.